3 days before my daughter's wedding, I was locked inside a fitting room by a man who owed me nothing. He didn't threaten me. He didn't explain much either. He simply pulled the curtain shut and whispered, "Please, just stay quiet. You need to hear this." For a moment I thought he was confused. Or worse, unstable. I am not a man who startles easily. 35 years working bank compliance teaches you that panic is a luxury you cannot afford. You learn to observe first, react later. Most disasters announce themselves quietly. They begin with a form, a misplaced signature, a polite phone call. This one began with a curtain sliding across a metal rail. The fitting room smelled of pressed fabric and steam. A three-way mirror stood in front of me, reflecting the same man from 3 angles: gray hair, straight back, suit jacket draped over one arm. Ordinary, predictable, the kind of man people assume is safe to overlook. The bell above the shop door chimed. Footsteps entered. A voice followed. "Tomas, my man, you ready for me?" I recognized the voice immediately. "Gavin, my future son-in-law." The tailor, Tomas, answered with forced politeness. "Yes, of course. Just 1 minute." Another set of footsteps, lighter, confident. A woman's voice, low and controlled. "Let's make this quick." My hand tightened around the jacket sleeve. That was not my daughter. I moved closer to the thin wall. I didn't press my ear to it. People who press their ears make noise. Instead, I stood still and let the sound travel. "You said Friday," the woman said. "No delays. It's handled," Gavin replied. Calm, smooth, the same tone he used when Elena talked about her patients. "He trusts me." "Trust isn't paperwork," she answered. "Signatures are." Paper rustled. Tomas cleared his throat somewhere in the room. "Mr. Rowe, your suit." 2 minutes, Gavin said, sharper now. Then his voice lowered, and the warmth disappeared. "The building is clean," he continued. "No mortgage, no liens. Once it's in the family trust, refinancing is easy. We move fast, sell fast." The woman exhaled. "And the father? He'll sign." I scheduled a capacity screening. "Routine. Just a formality. If he hesitates, we frame it as stress. Elena will support it. She thinks I'm protecting him." My chest didn't tighten. My pulse didn't spike. What changed was smaller. A single, quiet realization sliding into place like a gear finding its notch. They weren't planning a marriage. They were planning a transfer. "After the ceremony?" the woman asked. "After the ceremony, we file. Monday morning. By the time anyone reads the fine print, the asset's leveraged." Silence followed. Then the soft sound of a kiss against a cheek. "We're close," she whispered. Footsteps moved away. The bell chimed again. Only then did the curtain shift. Tomas's face appeared, pale, apologetic, terrified of his own courage. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I heard them last week too. I couldn't stay quiet this time." I looked at him for a long second. "You did the right thing," I said. But inside, something older than anger had already awakened. Not rage, not fear, procedure. I didn't leave the shop right away. I walked out, thanked Tomas, shook his hand like nothing unusual had happened, and stepped into the late morning Chicago air with the same calm expression I'd worn for decades in bank offices and conference rooms. Only when I sat inside my car and closed the door did I allow myself to breathe fully. There are 2 kinds of men who survive long careers around fraud. The loud ones burn out. The quiet ones take notes. I took notes, not on paper yet, in my head. Names, words, phrases, capacity screening, family trust, Monday filing. Those were not romantic words. They were administrative weapons. Clean, legal, devastating if timed correctly. I drove home slowly, obeying every traffic light as if routine itself could keep the world stable. The building stood exactly as it had for 26 years. Red brick, 2 narrow balconies, the small crack above the second-floor window I'd meant to repair every summer and never did. People think danger announces itself with sirens. In reality, danger arrives while everything looks normal. Inside, The house smelled faintly of coffee and lemon polish. Elena had stopped by the night before to drop off invitation leftovers and hug me twice for no reason at all. Her laughter still seemed to hang in the air. I sat at the kitchen table and finally opened a yellow legal pad. What I know, Gavin coordinated with a woman. The target is property, not salary. Timing is tied to the wedding. What I don't know, her full name, his license status, the exact document. Then I added a third column. What Elena will believe. That column stayed empty for a long time. Because love doesn't evaluate evidence. Love evaluates tone. I met Gavin 8 months earlier on a Sunday afternoon. Elena had invited him for dinner. Nothing formal, Dad, just pasta. He arrived 10 minutes early with a bottle of wine and a compliment for the curtains. People who want acceptance study the room before they speak. He had an easy smile and perfect posture. The kind of man who looks comfortable shaking hands in photographs. During dinner he asked polite questions about my retirement, my hobbies, my health. At the time, I had told myself he was attentive. Later, I realized he was mapping terrain. 2 weeks after that dinner, he casually asked whether the building was fully in my name or shared. He framed it as curiosity about inheritance laws. I answered without suspicion. 35 years in fraud had made me good at spotting forged checks, not rehearsed charm at my own table. There were other small things. He always volunteered to help Elena with paperwork. He joked about how confusing legal language could be. He suggested digital copies of my documents, just in case. None of it was criminal. Individually, it was kindness. Together, it was a pattern. That evening, Elena called while I was still staring at the notepad. Dad, are you excited? She asked. Her voice carried the nervous happiness of someone standing on the edge of a new life. I am, I said truthfully. How are you holding up? Gavin's handling so much of the logistics. I don't know what I'd do without him. I closed my eyes for half a second. There it was again. Reliance disguised as relief. I'm glad you have support, I answered carefully. She laughed. You sound like you're giving a speech already. After we hung up, I remained still, listening to the silence. I could tell her. I could drive across town, sit at her kitchen table, and repeat every word I'd heard in that shop. And she would look at me the way loving daughters look at fathers who can't let go. Concerned, patient, distant. Gavin would apologize for the misunderstanding, and I would become the obstacle between her and happiness. Predators rarely fight parents directly. They let love do the work. So I did what I had done my entire professional life. I didn't accuse. I verified. The next morning, I opened my old laptop, the one I'd kept after retirement because it still held archived contacts. Names from past investigations, auditors, compliance officers, clerks who understood filings better than most lawyers. I sent 2 emails. One to a former licensing analyst asking, casually, whether financial advisor was a registered title or just marketing language. Another to a county clerk I once helped with a document fraud case, asking how property trusts were recorded and how alerts could be attached to a title. Both replied within hours. The analyst wrote back, title means nothing without a license number. The clerk answered, protective filings exist. Rare, but effective. That was enough to confirm what my instincts already knew. This wasn't romance drifting off course. It was a scheduled transaction. I closed the laptop and looked around the quiet kitchen. The same room where Elena had done homework, cried over exams, planned vacations we never took. Predators prefer paperwork because paperwork doesn't look like violence. It looks like organization. But organization can be a weapon. And I intended to build a shield with the same tools. The first real mistake people make when they discover a scheme is moving too fast. Speed feels like control. In reality, speed creates noise. Noise alerts predators. So I moved slowly, not hesitantly, deliberately. 2 days after the fitting room, I invited Gavin to coffee. Not dinner. Coffee is neutral, short, public. It gives a man less space to perform. We met at a small cafe near the river. He arrived exactly on time, wearing the same calm confidence he wore everywhere, like punctuality itself was proof of character. "How are wedding nerves treating you?" he asked with an easy smile. "Manageable," I said. "You?" "Excited. Elena deserves everything perfect." He said her name often. People who want trust repeat names like anchors. I watched his hands while we talked. No wedding ring yet. Clean nails. No tremor. He stirred his coffee clockwise, then stopped halfway when I mentioned paperwork. "I've been organizing my documents," I said casually. "Property, insurance, medical files. Getting older makes you think ahead." He nodded quickly. "Too quickly. That's smart. A lot of families wait too long." "I was considering a trust," I added, letting the word sit between us like a dropped coin. His eyes brightened for half a second. Then he leaned back, pretending indifference. "Trusts can be great," he said. "Simplifies things for Elena later." There it was again, later. Always later. Always Elena, handling something. I changed the subject immediately. Predators relax when the bait disappears. They assume they imagined it. We finished coffee. He shook my hand warmly. "Let me know if you ever need help with forms," he said. "I will," I replied. And for the first time since the fitting room, I smiled genuinely. Because he just volunteered to stand exactly where I needed him. That afternoon, I met Ruth Adler. We'd worked together once on a complex internal audit 15 years earlier. She had since become a property attorney known for two traits: patience and memory. Dangerous qualities in legal work. Her office smelled faintly of paper and eucalyptus oil. No decorations except framed certificates and a single black and white photograph of the city skyline. I told her everything, not emotionally, chronologically. She listened without interrupting, fingers folded, eyes steady. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "They're not amateurs," she said. "This is soft guardianship strategy mixed with asset leverage." "Can it be blocked?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Yes, but not with accusations. With structure." She pulled a legal pad toward her and began sketching boxes and arrows. "A protective living trust," she said. "Not for transferring ownership. For freezing unauthorized movement. Dual verification. Mandatory physical presence. Automatic alerts to clerk and counsel." "In plain language?" I asked. "In plain language," she replied. "They can't move the building without you standing next to Elena in the same room. And every attempt leaves a footprint." I leaned back. "Will Elena sign?" "That depends," Ruth said calmly. "If you present it as defense against someone, maybe not. If you present it as organization for her future, probably yes." I nodded once. Love rejects warnings. Love accepts planning. The next evening, Elena came by with a folder of seating charts and color samples. She spread them across the kitchen table like blueprints for joy. "Do you think cream or white?" she asked. "Cream," I said automatically. She laughed. "You didn't even look. I trust your judgment." The words left my mouth before I realized the irony. While she talked about flowers and music, I slid Ruth's draft papers across the table. "I've been updating documents," I said lightly. "Just making sure you won't have to worry about anything if something ever happens to me." Her face softened instantly. Concern replaced excitement for a moment. "Dad, it's nothing dramatic," I added quickly. "Just structure. You sign here as co-trustee so you're protected." She scanned the pages. Legal language bored her. I could see it. She trusted me the same way I used to trust numbers. She signed. No hesitation. No suspicion. I thanked her, poured more tea, and let the conversation drift back to wedding playlists. She left an hour later, kissing my cheek twice. When the door closed, I stood alone in the hallway holding the folder. The shield was in place. But shields alone don't end schemes. They only stop the first strike. I still needed proof. Undeniable, unspinnable proof. Not for court. For Elena. For the moment when love would demand explanation and charm would try to rewrite reality. That proof arrived sooner than I expected. The following night, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. A message. Short. Precise. "He's meeting her again." 8:40 p.m. River North. Same woman. It was from Tomas. I didn't reply. I just picked up my keys. Because sometimes the second thread reveals the whole pattern. I didn't rush to River North. Rushing draws attention. Attention changes behavior. I arrived 10 minutes early and parked half a block away from the small wine bar Tomas had mentioned. The evening air carried the smell of rain and exhaust. People moved in loose clusters, laughing, checking phones, living ordinary lives that had nothing to do with legal traps or silent investigations. I stayed in the car and watched the entrance. At 8:41, Gavin appeared. He didn't look around nervously. He never did. Confidence is the most convincing disguise. He walked in with the relaxed stride of a man who believes he owns his surroundings. At 8:47, the woman arrived. Gray jacket, dark hair tied back, straight posture. She didn't check her reflection in the window. People who operate on control don't waste time on reassurance. She stepped inside without hesitation. Dana, I waited 3 minutes before entering. Timing matters. Too soon, and you're noticed. Too late, and you miss the first truth. Inside, the bar was dim, amber lights reflecting off bottles. I took a seat 2 tables away. Back turned slightly, phone on the table as if I were reading messages. In reality, the voice recorder was already running. They spoke quietly, but close rooms carry sound if you know how to listen. Monday, Dana said. We file before noon. Gavin nodded. He signed the preliminary structure. The rest is formality. Don't call it formality, she corrected. Call it sequence. Paper slid across the table. A folder. He tapped it once. After the honeymoon, we push refinancing, he continued. Elena will agree if I frame it as renovation. Dana's lips curved slightly. Not a smile. Approval. And the father? She asked. He trusts paperwork, Gavin replied. Men like him always do. They think forms equal safety. I felt a faint irony settle in my chest. Forms do equal safety. If you write them first. Dana leaned closer. No delays. If he hesitates, we escalate the capacity angle. Gavin exhaled. He won't. He wants to feel useful. The sentence was delivered casually, like a fact from weather forecast. I let the recorder run. 10 minutes. 15. Enough for pattern, tone, intent. Evidence isn't about quantity. It's about clarity. When they stood to leave, I remained seated. I didn't need faces on video. Voices were sufficient. Faces create confrontation. Voices create confirmation. I exited 5 minutes later and walked 2 blocks before stopping under a street lamp. I replayed the recording once, headphones in, eyes closed. No shouting. No threats. Just strategy. Perfect. The next step wasn't exposing them. Exposure without timing is waste. The next step was pressure. 2 days before the wedding, I invited Gavin to dinner again, this time at a quieter restaurant. Candlelight, polished wood, the illusion of intimacy. He arrived smiling, relaxed, believing momentum was on his side. We ordered. We discussed menu options, weather, music. Then, between courses, I placed an envelope on the table. A gift, I said. For you and Elena. He opened it slowly. Inside was a printed confirmation of a $40,000 transfer. Real, prepared earlier that day. His eyes widened despite his effort to remain composed. Greed rarely hides completely. It flickers like a faulty bulb. That's incredibly generous, he said. One condition, I added calmly. A mutual property acknowledgement. Just a document stating the building remains untouched until Elena and I both agree otherwise. The smile froze. Only for a second. But seconds reveal more than speeches. That's reasonable, he said finally. Of course. I nodded, as if reassured, and changed the subject. Let him breathe. Let him believe the negotiation was balanced. He left dinner convinced he had secured both money and trust. He didn't realize he had just confirmed motive. That night, I sent the recording to Ruth. Her reply came an hour later. Clear coordination. Enough for advisory notice if needed. Keep pressure controlled. Controlled. That was the key word. Predators expect anger. They prepare for accusations. They rarely prepare for calm structure tightening around them. The wedding was 48 hours away. I didn't feel rage. I felt alignment. The pieces weren't dramatic. They were administrative. But administration, when precise, is irreversible. Elena visited more often. Sometimes with coffee. Sometimes with silence. Healing doesn't always involve conversation. Sometimes it involves presence. One evening she said, "I'm seeing someone." Slowly. "That's good," I answered. She smiled faintly. "He reads documents before signing them." I laughed. Progress. That night, after she left, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and removed the folder. Recordings, transcripts, printed confirmations. Evidence that had served its purpose. I carried it to the small metal bin near the balcony and lit a match. Paper curls before it burns. Edges darken. Ink dissolves. Predators rely on fear lingering. Closure denies them that privilege. When the last page turned to ash, I returned inside and sat at the workbench. The old Swiss watch lay open beneath the lamp. Gears exposed. Springs aligned. A mechanism waiting for final calibration. I adjusted the balance wheel carefully and wound it once. Tick, tick, tick. Perfect rhythm. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just correct. Some people believe justice must roar to be real. They mistake volume for strength. But the most effective justice is quiet. It observes. It prepares. It remembers. I closed the watch, set it on the table, and turned off the light. Thank you for listening. Calm justice doesn't shout. It remembers. Elena was laughing with her friends, bouquet in hand, music swelling around her like a shield made of sound. She saw me and waved, joy bright and unguarded. I waved back. One more night of happiness. Truth could wait 12 hours. It didn't need applause. I woke before the alarm. Not because I was anxious. Because routine returns when decisions are already made. The apartment was quiet. The city outside had not yet committed to morning. A thin blue light hovered between night and day, the hour when everything feels suspended, not asleep, not awake, simply waiting. I made coffee the same way I always did. 2 scoops. Boiling water. No sugar. Control begins with small habits. Predators rely on chaos. I relied on order. At 8:12 a.m., Elena texted, "Are we still meeting at your place?" I stared at the message for 3 seconds. "Yes. 9 o'clock. Come as you are." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Okay. No emojis. No excitement. She sensed something was off. Love has instincts even when it ignores evidence. Gavin arrived first. 8:53 a.m. He stood at the door like a man who hadn't slept. Same suit as the night before, but without the polish. His confidence was gone, replaced by the hollow calm of someone who had run every escape route in his head and found none. I let him in without a word. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped, eyes on the floor. "You understand the order," I said quietly. "You speak first." He nodded. There is a specific posture people take when they know they are about to dismantle their own lies. Shoulders slightly forward, breathing shallow, voice rehearsed but fragile. He had it. Elena arrived at 9:07. She stepped inside smiling, still glowing from the wedding night. Hair tied loosely, jacket half buttoned, joy not yet aware of its expiration. "What's going on?" she asked lightly. "You both sound strange." No one answered immediately. Silence is not absence of sound. Silence is pressure. She looked from me to Gavin. "Okay, this is weird," she said. "Did something happen?" Gavin swallowed. "Elena," he began, "I need to tell you something." Her smile didn't disappear. It paused. "There's someone else," he said. The room didn't explode. It didn't shatter. It simply shifted. "Someone else," she repeated, as if translating a foreign phrase. "A woman. Dana. We've been working together, planning things I didn't tell you." Her eyebrows pulled inward. Confusion first, not anger. Confusion always comes before pain. "What things?" she asked. He looked at me. I shook my head once. "Say it." He exhaled. "The building. Your father's property. We were going to transfer it into a trust after the wedding. Then refinance. Sell. The word sell hung in the air like smoke. Elena blinked twice. That doesn't make sense, she said quietly. Why would you? Because it was an asset, he answered. There it was, the sentence that ended the illusion. Not shouted, not defended, just stated. She turned to me slowly. Is this a joke? She asked. Some kind of lesson? I opened my phone and pressed play. Their voices filled the room. The wine bar conversation. The hallway recording. Calm, strategic, undeniable. Not emotional betrayal. Administrative betrayal. The worst kind. Her face didn't crumple. It hardened. Yesterday was our wedding, she said, looking at Gavin. You kissed me. You said we were starting a life. He tried to speak. She raised her hand. Don't. One word. Complete. The door closed behind him at 9:28 a.m. No shouting. No throwing objects. No theatrical collapse. She sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Tears didn't come immediately. Truth sometimes arrives before emotion catches up. I would have signed, she whispered finally. Anything he put in front of me. I know, I said. She nodded once. That's why you didn't tell me earlier. Yes. A long pause. You protected me. The sentence wasn't grateful. It was factual. The legal aftermath unfolded quietly. Ruth filed a notice of attempted undue influence. Dana's professional board opened an ethics review. Gavin's licensing status was questioned. No sirens. No headlines. Just doors closing in offices with fluorescent lighting. Justice is rarely cinematic. It's procedural. 3 months later, autumn arrived. Leaves collected along the curb outside the building. The crack above the second-floor window still hadn't been repaired. Life continued with its ordinary imperfections.